It's been a while since I've done one of these, but I guess it's Ask the Rabbi Wednesday again. I recently received a question. It was actually another rabbi sent to me that he received from somebody about the question as to, there was a young man, his father was Jewish, his mother was not. When he was a baby, he received his bris for the sake of conversion because his mother was not Jewish, with a chashuv moil, a chashuv bezdin. And later on he went to the mikveh to convert fully. And the question is, when he gets married, what name does he put on the ksuva? Does he say his name Ben Avraham Avinu because he's a ger, because he's a convert, and so he says that he's the son of the patriarch Abraham? Or is he listed as Ben and then his father's name, his biological father's name? Now, this is not a cut and dry issue, but he specifically asked about when he gets married, as far as the ksuba, as far as the marriage contract. Now, when it comes to being called to the Torah, that's just a custom, and so it really doesn't matter how he's called, and so therefore he can be called by his, Ben, his father's name, if he chooses, wants to. Technically, me'ikar din, according to many poskim, although also it's not cut and dry, it's not a simple thing, it would seem like he does not have any mitzvah of kibbud av v'em, of honoring his parents. I don't think his mother ever converted, although he still has a mitzvah of hakaras hatov, of gratitude. The reason is that halachically they're not his parents, because when somebody converts, they lose halachic connection to their parents as far as what the halacha, what the Jewish law recognizes them as parents, because the ger kakatim shenoilad dami, that it says that the sages teach that someone who converts to Judaism is born again. He's a brand new person. It's possible that that's where other religions who were based in Judaism originally, perhaps they got that idea and that terminology that they use from these sources. And that's that could actually answer a lot of questions there, but that's not for here to speak about now. But in any event, still, if the parents are supportive of their lives, so then they have to show honor to their parents, even though it's not in the sense of the mitzvah of honoring parents, it's in the sense of gratitude that you would show to any human being who does anything good for you, and it's definitely a special family relationship. Still, it doesn't, halacha does not change morality. Halacha is not necessarily a moral system. That's a big question in philosophy. Not everything that is kosher according to the halacha is necessarily moral. So that's an issue that, we don't necessarily, say that anything that is okay according to Jewish law is automatically moral. Which will answer a lot of questions that people have in general about the Talmud, about, doesn't the Talmud say you could do this or that? And the other thing, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And a lot of things are also just talking about statutorily, when are things, according to the statutes of the law of the Bible, when do things take effect and so forth. If things take effect, that doesn't mean that that's what you should do. That's a major difference, between, let's say, not everything that's allowed is required. We'll engage in a little comparative religion, look at the Mormon Church before polygamy ended in the mainstream Mormon church, although it continues in certain fundamentalist Mormon groups that are not within the main Mormon church. So they would say that the more wives a man has, the greater is his place in heaven, as opposed to the Jewish approaches. You do have to get married. If you can afford more than one wife, it's okay if the society allows it, but because society today frowns upon polygamy, we don't practice it anymore. And except in very extenuating circumstances, and according to the Ashkenazic approach, you would need the permission from 100 rabbis. According to the Sephardic approach, you need permission from 3 rabbis. But still, someone needs to see, and the society needs to decide if those extenuating circumstances exist. Like, for example, if the wife refuses to be divorced, they're already separated, and the wife refuses to be divorced, or she's unable to, or she's missing, they don't know if she's even alive, things like that. In those cases, then polygamy could be permitted. Of course, biblically speaking, it's permitted under any circumstances, but we go beyond. There is morality that is beyond the letter of the law. And so too, just because this ger does not have a requirement in the sense of how the Ten Commandments says, honor thy mother and thy father, to honor his parents, he should still do so. It doesn't mean that he should, just because he's not obligated to honor his parents, doesn't mean he shouldn't. And it's still fulfilling a mitzvah, it's just a different mitzvah. Now, back to our question, which name is he called by? So again, to the Torah, he could choose any name because it's a custom. Many Sephardic congregations don't even call people to the Torah. They just say, "Oh, you come up," and they don't say how among most of the Ashkenazic congregations they say, B'amod and all these things. Each place has their own ways what they do, and so that's not a halachic issue. That is just a custom. And yes, customs are important, but what I'm saying is that you could be called anything. I remember, especially like on Simchas Torah, when we kind of go a little bit out of our normal practices. So the custom in Ashkenazic circles would be that if the Gabbai, the man calling people to the Torah, he calls his father, he doesn't mention his father's first name. He'll say Avi Mari, my father, my teacher, or my master. Ben, and then he'll say Mr. Ben, then his father's name, meaning the person's grandfather's name, Ben Yaakov, whatever. But he wouldn't say Moshe ben Yaakov. He wouldn't even say Avi Mori Moshe ben Yaakov. He would just say Avi Mori ben Yaakov. But I remember in Simchas Torah in one shul, the Gabbai, he called him his father, and he said, V'amod Avi Mori, Mr. So-and-so, since everybody calls him in shul, so, Avi Mori, Mr. Goldberg, that wasn't his name, but I don't want to embarrass people involved, and something like that. Now, that being said, so when calling to the Torah really doesn't matter. If he wants to be called Ben Abraham, he could be called Ben Abraham. If he wants to be called Ben, whatever this fellow's father's name, let's say he was Yaakov, he could be called Ben Yaakov. That wasn't the name. And then I even, our local Rav, often when he calls a ger to the Torah, he'll say, Yamod Moshe ben Reb Avraham instead of Ben Avraham Avinu. He doesn't want to necessarily, even though there's a mitzvah, you have to miss a ger, but unfortunately the society doesn't value gerim the way that we're supposed to. So then he would say, Ben Reb Avraham, because we say generally, some people use the title Reb before, so Ben Reb Moshe ben Reb Avraham, even though he's this individual's a ger tzedek, but he's been Jewish and frum for most of his life. He's a Talmud Chacham, and he's been very accepted into the society. He has shidduchim with very chashuv families. That's beside the point. But that's what we're calling to Torah. Now the question really is and actually there is a Gemara like that in Yevamos that there was a ger and his father was a guy with him, and so it says he's called Reuven ben Yaakov or Yaakov ben Yehuda. I don't remember what the Gemara says exactly. There's a Gemara like they asked him, "Aren't you a ger?" And he says, "Yes, I'm a ger, but my father was my guy with me." But again, that's talking about how he's called. It's almost colloquial. Now, in a legal document like a ksuba or Rahman litzlan a get, then we're a little bit more strict. Now, ksuba is not as strict as a get. A get is much more strict because it says it specifically has to be that name, that person. So you don't get confused who it is, even if two people have the same name, and even if they, let's say there's two people in the same city with the same name, and their wives have the same name, you can't use the same get. That's a mission in Gittin. So it's important to use the right names on a get. On a ksuba, it's not as important. Let's look at the laws of Gittin. So there's two approaches. One is that you should put Ben Avram Avinu in any case, and the other approach is that if he's called by another name, you have to include the words Hager to make it clear that the person is a ger. Now in a ksuba, it's not as important because the laws of ksubas are not as strict as the laws of Gittin. The Sephardic ksuba is much different than Ashkenazic ksuba. It's much longer, first of all, and it is also much more fluid. You can add all different kinds of things into a Sephardic ksuba that would never appear in an Ashkenazic ksuba. I officiated at Sephardic weddings as well as Ashkenazic weddings. I was Messiah Kedushin, and I had even with the books that showed me how to fill out the Sephardic ksuba, I had a pretty hard time figuring it out because there's so many different variations and so many different versions as opposed to the Ashkenazic ksuba, which you have to know what you're doing. It's not as easy as let's say marriage license in America, although those can sometimes be complicated too, especially in New Jersey. In New Jersey, you have to know. I'm thinking of making a series of videos on being a marriage officiant and how to set up that business and all different things to know. And those always vary from state to state. And like New Jersey, they make you send the marriage license back to wherever the wedding took place, as opposed to where you received the marriage license. Whereas most places you send it back to where you received it. Sometimes in Connecticut, you have to do it where you received it, and there's different things like that. Often in New Jersey, they like to have that too, but you have to know where to send it. You have to look it up, and sometimes it's not so easy to find, and it can get confusing there in New Jersey. But anyway, still, filling out a ksuba, you got to know what you're doing. But there are variants, there are different opinions. For example, there's opinions whether or not to put a last name on the ksuba. There's opinions as to what about the case where the mother's Jewish and the father's not. Which name do you put? Do you put the mother's name, or do you put the grandfather's name, the mother's father's name, and different things like that. And there are many variations as to what to do as far as that is concerned. So, in any event, that's the. I would say to be on the safe side, it's better and more normative to put Ben Avram Avinu in this case, where the child is definitely a ger. His mother never converted, and even if she did, after he was born, he'd still be a ger. Obviously, if she converted before he's born, then he's Yisrael l'chol davar. Even harash shelo b'kedusha v'leidasei b'kedusha, he's a yid. But then there's another question as to paternity, and in that case, perhaps as well, it's much more complicated as to say, well, who, do we list a father? Does he have a father according to halacha? Certainly, the reason why we have a din of havchana, which a lot of people get confused about, why should a gioris have havchana? What is havchana? It means that when a woman ends a relationship, she has to wait 3 months before starting the next relationship. If a woman is a widow, she can't get married for 3 months. If a woman gets divorced, she can't get married for 3 months. And if a woman converts to Judaism, she also has to have that 3 months of separation, although many Rabbanim will say that the Havchana could take place before the marriage, before the conversion as well. I know that's what Rav Peretz Steinberg holds. And also with the cases of Gir, I remember I sat in a Bezdin with Rav Peretz Steinberg Shlita and with the Himner Rav Noach Isaac Olbaum Shlita, and Rav Olbaum said that Rav Peretz said that you didn't need Havchana at all for a particular reason. It was very clear that the woman was not pregnant. And the Rav Olbaum said as long as they make a pregnancy test, then it's good enough with that. It doesn't matter if she's pregnant or not, just they have to know whether she's pregnant or not. Whether it's positive or negative doesn't really make a difference. The thing is to know Havchana. So why is that? Why is there Havchana by a Gioris, by a get, or by Mrs. Habal, by an almana, a widow or divorcee? The reason is obvious, because you want to know who the father is. But here we know who the father is, so what difference does that make? So the answer is, and if the child is born after the Gior, like for example, also if a woman is obviously pregnant and she converts, they don't have to wait they don't have to wait 3 months as far as when it comes to conversion and then the marriage after the conversion. But what about, so what's the difference? What's the nafkamina? Now the difference is in the laws of Yevamos. The laws of Yevamos, Yibum means what they call in English, it's a kind of, it's like saying, what is tefillin phylacteries? Oh, phylacteries, So what's the Yibum is a levirate marriage. So what is a levirate marriage? So if unfortunately a man passes away without having any children, so then his wife is supposed to marry the brother or undergo a ceremony to free her from the obligation of marrying his brother, her late husband's brother. Nowadays, we don't allow and the reason is basically to give a name to the brother who died, that his family name should stay around. And in a sense, it's almost considered as if that is the brother of the that child is the brother's child, almost in a spiritual sense, as opposed to the dead brother's child, as opposed to the one who married after that. Now, and if not, if they don't want to do that, then there's a whole ceremony which she takes off the shoe and spits, and that's what the Torah prescribes in such a case. Now, nowadays we only do chalitza, where with case with the shoe and the spitting, and the brother never would marry the widow's, would never marry the widow, his brother's widow. Could he if he wanted to? What we would say probably is they should go through the chalitza first and then marry. If they wanted to get married for whatever reason, then they should marry normally after the chalitza, but not marry through yibum. Now, the question is, well, who is considered a brother? Now, to be a brother, you have to be a brother, meaning who are two brothers. So to be a brother, you have to have the same father and the same mother. As far as yibum and chalitza go, half brothers do not make yibum and chalitza for half brothers, or at least have the same father, because you want to keep that family name, the father's house. So then the question is like this: who is a brother? So in the case where where one brother was conceived before the mother converted and was born afterwards, so then is that your bus? I know, we'll see. So then it's not a brother according to Jewish law as far as yibum and chalitza, even though it might be a brother for other reasons. Let's try to get you on this bus. And then, so that's the reason why we make havchana. For that reason. Yeah, I think that's your bus. There's too many cars. Is it going to turn around? All right, well, please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching. God bless. Let's hope it turns. Oh, is it just going to go straight? Uh-oh. Trying to catch. All right. God bless.